Welcome to episode 2 of Unfiltered Decisions. Today I'm joined by Shane Varcoe. Before tech and enterprise sales, Shane was living a very different life in New Zealand, working on the wharf packing soap. Then, in just a few seconds, a workplace accident changed everything. What followed was not a clean comeback story. It was pain, recovery, forgiveness, discipline, and rebuilding, one step at a time. Today, Shane brings that same resilience into business, sales, and the company he is building. But this conversation is about more than work. It is about what happens when life breaks the path you thought you were on and how you find the courage to build again. Let's get into it. Great to have you here, Shane. Thanks for your time.
No, it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Maybe just to get things started, do you have a favorite quote which motivates you?
As of late, I've had many quotes. Maybe right now, seize the day.
I love that. Leave nothing for tomorrow. Just get it done today.
That's right.
Yeah, perfect. So, I'm really looking forward to this conversation with you today. I do want to get into a little bit about your personal life. What was life like in New Zealand? Before you excelled in enterprise tech sales, you started your own company. What does future look like? What are you doing these days? So maybe to get things started here. So what was life like in New Zealand before entrepreneurship, enterprise sales, all of that kicked in your life?
Yeah, it was very different. I mean, it's been 20 years ago now since I left, but it was very physical. I was very much into sports, track and field.
Yeah.
I enjoyed martial arts, but from a physical aspect, that was how I identified myself. Movement was a big part. Life, and in some ways, it was a lot simpler, and it was social. It was full of momentum, and I was younger. I was energetic, and I probably took a lot of things for granted back then. Yeah. And I think, because I think I just thought that life would just unfold, and I didn't really anticipate that it was going to unfold the way that it did.
Yeah, I mean, I remember our conversations as well. You were a very different person emotionally, physically, and mentally. So now, I think pretty much the tough part of this episode today. Can you take us back to that day? What happened with that forklift accident at work? I know we chatted about it, but I just want you to do a little bit elaborate on this episode. What was it? What did it feel like? What exactly happened?
Yeah, it was almost 29 years ago to the day. So I remember it like it was yesterday. It was 1st of May, 1997. Like any other normal work day, as though that's what I thought. Yeah. And we were on the second shift, and like a lot of young guys in those environments, we were trying to get the job done as quickly as possible so that we could just go home. Yeah. But work 2 hours, get paid for 8. Hey, who doesn't want to do that? Part of that job on that particular day was to load boxes of soap into the container. What could go wrong, right? And to this day, there was one of my colleagues. I thank him for not showing up that day because he was replaced by somebody else who knew first aid. So that was a blessing in disguise. So it's normally 3 people, so there was 2 at the time just working away. We kept on going until a replacement came. But the truth is that shortcuts had become normal. The long forks are being used instead of short ones. Yeah. We were moving fast at the time because we were basically racing. And at the time of the incident, the forklift driver was standing outside of the forklift, operating it, and that was normal for us to do. Unfortunately, in this particular time, he let the handbrake off. So when he put his hand down the accelerator to lift the load up the pallets up so that we could just continue packing, the forklift lunged forward. And the only thing I could do really at that time was split second. There was maybe 2 or 3 seconds. It feels like slow motion. Was to get one leg out of the way and then brace for impact. And then I felt the crushing of the pallet against my leg. And then I thought, okay, that's not too bad. But a few split seconds later, I saw the prong of the forklift as it went through and into my leg and pushed me up into the soap boxes. So not only was it crushed, but it partially severed my leg. When I say partially, it was maybe a bit of a trigger warning here for people listening, but my leg was dangling by the kneecap, basically. And after the only thing I could do was just scream for him to remove the forklift. And unfortunately, due to the panic, he jumped in, and instead of reversing, he pushed it back in again. And before he reversed it. And then from there, that's when everything unfolded. It was kind of like out of a horror scene when I was hopping about on one leg. And for some reason, I don't know, instinct, I was reaching down and I was trying to pull out my belt to do a tourniquet. By that stage, the other 3 had come running from the other container. And the guy who'd come late, he'd been working in the forestry, so he knew first aid. And they had to wrestle me to the ground because I just kept getting back up, so I was just panicking. And they did their best to try and stop the bleeding because there was a lot of blood coming out of the artery. And I remember in that moment that just thinking that this is it. It's Thursday afternoon at 5 o'clock. This is the last day of my life, the last moment, as the blood started draining out. And there was a moment where I had drifted, like everything had blacked out. And I just remember drifting into this really peaceful state where I could see a white light. And of course, it's everything that they say is a white light, if your light's flashing before your eyes. And I remember at the time, my son at the time, he just turned 2. And the thoughts of never seeing him again, never not attending his first day of school, the first of everything, not seeing him grow up into a man, that just sent me into a panic. But for whatever reason, there was a book that I'd read a few years earlier. It was called Zen and the Martial Arts by Joe Hyam, and there was a section in there about breathing. And as soon as I just thought of that, just came to my mind. So I just started breathing and taking really deep breaths and relaxing myself. And there was a moment where it was just so peaceful, I think I could just have gone to the other side. But what seemed a few seconds later, it felt like my soul had popped back into my body. My eyes opened up. I was in excruciating pain. There was people everywhere. I remember the safety inspector just taking photos like it was paparazzi day. And all I could think of was 2 things: get a camera out of my face and someone get me a beer. I don't know what caused me to do that, but the ambulance came quickly and then I was rushed into the hospital.
Wow. Thanks for sharing, firstly. It takes a lot of courage to even reveal all that. So thanks for sharing. I really feel it. So, and with these things, right, especially with your past, like you were a sportsman, you were so fit. How old were you back then, by the way, when this happened?
I was 23.
Wow. Yeah. You were fit, you were, looking forward to a life, maybe sports, maybe something else. You may not have thought of Shane behind a computer back then.
No, I definitely didn't think of that.
So life changed, and I feel with these things comes a lot of blame and anger, right? I want to get into that part. Like a lot of people carry anger, for years after such things happen. What were you like, and how did it move forward for you from then?
Yeah, a good question, and I don't think that to be human, it would be impossible not to be angry. Angry at the company, angry at the driver, angry at myself for standing in front of it. It wasn't for years later until I realised that I probably shouldn't have been standing there in the first place. Okay, I definitely shouldn't have been standing there. But there was a lot of anger, there's a lot of blame going on, and it was sad to see because they were trying to of course, you need to understand the root cause of the incident or the accident. So fingers start getting pointed. And so they started pointing it at the foreman. They started pointing it at my colleagues and then myself. And I was like, whoa, hang on a minute, I'm the victim here. But ultimately, when it comes down to it, I have to own it, the fact that I was standing in front of that. But yeah, I certainly went through a lot of anger. Every time I had to hop, and every little bit of pain that goes on in the leg, I just got mad about it, specifically at the driver.
Yeah. So talking about the driver, I know you mentioned to me in our chat offline that you met the driver, right? What was that like? And I want to just capture that moment. Was there anger? Was there forgiveness? Was there reflection? You looked him into his eyes. Tell me about it.
Yeah, it was a couple of years later. So by then I was 25, full of shall we say, emotion.
Yep.
And I do remember it was at a work function that we had for Christmas, and he was there, and we avoided each other that night, and I know why he was avoiding me. And I was waiting for the moment to see him, and I saw him go into a back room, and that's when I took my chance. And I just remember the guys egging me on. They're going, "Yeah, punch him!" And it's like, physically, I wasn't in any kind of shape to be even thinking that way, but I was really ready to just unleash emotionally, verbally.
Yeah.
When I got to the room, he turns around. It was just me and him. And when I looked him in the eyes, and I could see a lot of anger, a lot of hurt, a lot of guilt, and a lot of sadness. And for whatever reason, at that moment, back then I was not religious or wasn't spiritual. I didn't read any books or anything, but I just felt compelled to do the opposite of what I was thinking, and which was I extended my hand and I just said to him, "It was just an accident. I'm okay. I'm here. I'm alive. We're both here.
Yeah.
I forgive you." And the moment I said that it was like a release for both of us. I've been holding on to this emotion for so long, and he's obviously been doing it as well because of the people having a go at him. Drove him out of the country for a start. But I just saw that he was released at that point. And because at the end of the day, these things happen for a reason. We were taking shortcuts, whatever. Life decided to put me in another direction.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't move on thinking that way. So I had to let go.
Now you said you saw fear in his eyes when you met him, right, in that room. But something shifted. What changed you in that moment that you completely shifted, right? You changed in that moment. What happened?
I guess I just realized that whatever it was I was thinking, whether it be verbal or doing, wasn't going to change what had happened. And he'd gone through his own journey as well. I mean, when someone has an accident, it's not just about you or me, it's about the other person as well. It's about the people that were all there on that day. Everyone's impacted in their own way. And as the main protagonist in the story, it's up to me to steer it in a different way. And it was just a gut feeling. It was just like, this is not going to help you. Try a different approach. And that was all happening in a split second. And that's why I decided to do that. And that was the right thing to do.
Yeah. That was amazing, Shane, that you could shift in that split second and turn it around, not only for yourself, but for that driver as well. I just want to know more, like you've described, hating someone is like drinking poison. So, in that hating, like what did forgiveness do for you, for your healing?
Yeah, I think, good question. And I heard that at a seminar one time.
Yeah.
Drinking poison, hating someone is like drinking poison and expecting someone else, the other person to die.
Yeah.
You actually do. And I think years on reflecting that, forgiveness comes in three parts. Firstly, it's the person that you're aimed at, that you're annoyed at. Secondly, you have to ask for forgiveness from other people as well. I'm not a perfect human being. I'll probably upset a lot of people in my time, no doubt, and I will continue to. But and then the last one, the most important one, what I learned a few years later was to forgive yourself.
Yep.
And that was a really powerful one that I didn't pick up on for a number of years.
Yep.
It was when I was getting a massage as part of my treatment, and for some reason, you could say, oh, it was obvious, but when she was hovering over my leg, and she put her hand on my scar, and then she started to cry. I'm going, this is what's going on here? It's a bit weird. And she didn't say anything, and then just continued. It wasn't until after I left, I was about to leave, and she said, "Forgive yourself. You're carrying a lot there's a lot going on inside you. I felt it. Forgive yourself." And that was powerful for me. Yeah.
100%. Thanks for sharing, by the way. That was all very deep, very personal stuff. It takes a lot of courage to be able to share. So thank you so much. I want to go now from, the accident to, you saying to me previously, recovery is never linear, right? So it's anything but a straight line. So what did the real version of recovery look like for you, Shane?
Yeah, it's been ongoing. It's never been, you're right. It's not a straight line. It's very ups and downs, very emotional. There was 7 operations, countless hours of physio. In the first year, I couldn't even really walk. It's been very tough.
Like what is that thing which people didn't see? I'm sure there are a lot of private battles beneath the surface which you've been fighting, right? Can you shed some light on that?
This is something that I don't really talk about. In fact, I don't really talk about anything. To be fair, but a lot of people, they only see the outside. They saw that I kept going, I kept working, I kept functioning. So it's easy to assume that he's fine. And I've always liked to be, after this accident, not really take life that seriously. So I like to have a bit of fun. But what people don't see is the scars on the inside, and they didn't see the shame. So for years, I never felt like a real person. My identity was gone, my self-confidence was gone, and I was very ashamed of the way that I looked. I felt weak. I would cover up my leg. I'd try and hide my limp as best that I could, and I just really didn't feel. I felt less than I should have, and I was carrying around a huge amount of pain that I didn't know how to talk about it, and I never really did talk to anyone about it until right now. So instead, I just buried it, and it manifested its way in eating. I ate a lot, and I put on a lot of weight. I put on 40 kilos on.
Oh, right.
I drank quite a bit, and I did a lot of silly things. But what people don't realise, and I was never going to say it, was that I was covering up for all the pain that I've been hiding, and it was manifesting and doing really silly things. And it was really about trying to numb myself. But I just didn't know. I didn't have the language to express it. And people may have looked at me and thought that I was intense, or that I was a bit out there. And what they didn't understand was that I was just hiding a lot of pain, and I'd been hiding it for years. And even now, there's times where I can still fall into the darkness, but we work hard and self-reflect. It just happens less. You said you lost your identity. Shane was a very different man now.
So what helped you rebuild yourself, like physically, emotionally, mentally?
I think, having a purpose definitely helped, which creates a direction. And I think at some point you have to start asking yourself better questions. What did I want from my life? What do I want to build from here? And what kind of legacy do I want to leave behind?
Yeah.
And then it became about building on all fronts. So I had to build physically, although that took some time. And I had to get stronger. I had to build mental toughness back again. I had to get clear. Emotionally, being around the right people really helped. I don't really say it a lot, but my wife has helped me a lot with this. She has very high standards and raised the bar on me, on the way that I think and the way that I behave. Again, I'm not a perfect human being, but it certainly had a strong bearing on who I am today.
Yeah. Oh yeah, none of us are perfect. But we try to give our best shot. So I think I want to get in now from that side of phase of life into tech and sales. I know we spoke about freelancing, building websites, and I know you've been doing enterprise tech sales for many years as well. So how did you get from that chapter of freelancing and websites into tech sales?
Yeah, I mean, it was just born out of doing something. I mean, when you're sitting around all day, you've got to find things to do. I mean, there's only so many children's shows that you can watch for your kids. And so I had to go at sales. And my first role was selling long distance telephone communications. This was back in the 90s where it was a thing. And so I learned from there, and I didn't even know how to sell. So I went to the store, got myself a suit and tie, and I went to the library, got a book on how to make cold calls, and just wrote a script from there, and that's where it all started for me. And from there, I got into tech. Life's all about timing, right? And I saw that the website thing was big. Everyone was going to use websites, and no one was going to shop anymore because we all go online. Well, we know that's not true, but so I went to the store again and I got myself how to write HTML, how to learn HTML in 24 hours, JavaScript, and I started learning it so that I could get myself a job in one of those companies. Unfortunately, we all know what happened in March in 2000. The bubble burst, and they weren't looking for anyone without skills. So I don't have any experience, so how do I get it? So I went and studied. The company that I previously worked for was kind enough to help me with my education, so I continued that. So I studied internet technology, and that's where I got into that. And also to fund myself, I had a family at the time, I had children, and I got a job telemarketing. And that job, I would say, grounded me for the rest of my career, because you're calling people that don't like you or don't want to hear from you. You're asking for money from an intangible piece of service that you're selling, donations it happened to be at the time, and you're doing that day in, day out. And then what that taught me was the whole dealing with rejection and just persisting and then just adjusting until you've got until you've got your pitch right.
The point that, amazing. Where your previous life, the struggles you went through, the pain you went through, helped you handle any of the second version of life better? Like, how there's so much uncertainty in life, in sales. There's so many rejections. So how did that previous life was helping you, what you all went through, the pain and the sadness and the anger?
Yeah, I can start off with my athletic career. So I was always incredibly competitive, always wanting to win and be first at everything, even if I wasn't, I still tried to be first. Yeah. Always trying to better myself and improve. And again, when you're in sales, and what's the worst that can happen, right? Someone says no, well, they hang up. In my life, what's the worst that could have happened? I nearly died. So my reference point is, well, nothing's going to be worse than that day. No matter how hard things get, and they have been, I can always persist and carry on.
Yeah. I love your attitude, and you upskill yourself as well. You clearly, brought so many transferable skills. That's amazing. Hey, I want to get into the founder chapter of Ravienta, right? And now I understand you're building Ravienta as we speak. What is the problem you're trying to solve there?
Yeah, and I think it's rather a big one, and it's on forecasting accuracy by using a CRM properly in the way that it should be. The challenge is that most organizations in Series B, C, D, they start to scale and they grow, they add more people. Their CRM doesn't grow with that, and so it gets broken. And when that gets broken, deals get lost or get moved, forecasts inaccurate, and it really messes up the revenue for a company and their planning. So what we aim to do is fix that. But what I've found is that most leaders know what they want, but they just don't know how to actually get it to work or find the right people that get it to work. And that's where we come in.
Yeah. I see your point. But, in my corporate life, I've used Salesforce all my life, or some kind of CRM to forecast deals, put them in the pipeline, progress them from there. Why now? Why is Ravienta important to your users or customers now? I'm sure there are other tools. So, yeah.
There's lots of different tools, but we're facing a really different challenge now that we once was. It's not as tech isn't as simple as it was. I mean, the world wasn't as simple as it was pre-COVID.
Yeah.
Now we're dealing with AI. We're dealing with a workforce that is disparate. We're dealing with companies that are trying to grow and are competing against each other at breakneck speed, and technology is coming out faster every day. And so it makes it really hard to keep up with all of that. Again, like we're living in a time where budgets are shrinking, but what's needed to actually grow is more demanding on people. So that whole, there's lots of different tools, but there's a consolidation that's been taking place. Rather than using 5 different tools, you can just use one. And I think that we fit into that place. There's a big gap because a lot of implementations go really well in the beginning, the baseline implementations. But where the real challenge is when companies need to move quickly. Larger implementation shops struggle to move quickly. There's a lot of red tape. We can move in quickly, like let's say lead to cash. I mean, that's a big thing.
Yeah.
Even things as simple as making the sales stages, getting the right exit, to getting the right mechanism in place so that you're exiting the sales stages when you're supposed to. We still see challenges where people are still forecasting out of spreadsheets. There's a forecast, everything's in the rep's head. It's not in the system. So you need that one source of truth. And in order for that to happen, the process of having a good hygiene in a CRM is really paramount.
Yeah, can we go a little bit deeper into this? Because I just wanted to know, what can actually go wrong when an enterprise is scaling? But what can actually go wrong specifically around CRM quality, the process discipline and forecasting, and they don't grow then, right?
I mean, with the sales reps will get happy ears. So opportunity goes in the system. We think that it's moving forward because the person said, we like it. So it gets moved, confidence grows in it, but there's not a real inspection on it. And then next thing you know, it's been forecasted and committed. And at the last minute, it gets pulled out because the proper guardrails weren't put in place in the first place. So that really impacts. We see, and because of that, this will inflate the pipeline. And the seeing what's going to close in the future and the deals that are committed is what companies will use to plan their following years. And sometimes I've seen it go horribly wrong. They'll hire 50 SDRs, and because they think they're going to be closing X much business, or they want to close that much business, so they go in and hire that many. They don't have the trainings in place. They don't. Again, that becomes a people problem. They don't train the reps properly, thoroughly, and next thing you know, the performance is down. Those deals drop out of the forecast, and so they have to let everyone go, and they blame it on the person. But reality is there's a process that needs to be put in place and structure around that before you even look at planning and putting people in place. And you know, but in a lot of organisations, in their rush to pay back their investors, to get out there and be competitive, they skip some of those steps, and that hurts a lot of people. It hurts the company ultimately.
Yeah, no, 100%. I've seen that happening. The pipeline being inflated, and it's a compounding effect. It affects a lot of stakeholders. So what would Ravienta solve in practical terms for founders or enterprise leaders or revenue leaders? What exactly is the offering?
Yeah, so we bring with us over 40 years experience combined in, well, more than that, through on the sales side and the CRM side, Salesforce side. Yeah, having been a user for the past 20 years, and my partner's been a user, an admin, certified admin. That's important for nearly 20 years as well.
Salesforce, I think.
Salesforce,
right? Yeah.
Amazing. So there's experience on both sides, and I think it all starts off with having that conversation. We need to understand where's your CRM hygiene at the moment. So we want to do a diagnostic on that and just run through, see what you're using it for, see where the gaps are, what are your goals, where do you want to get to, and then we can make the recommendations based on that, what you should change. And then if they want to take us on and want us to do that work for them, then we'll do that. If they want us to continue managing the whole RevOps side of things as well, we can do that.
You hit the nail on its head. I love that, the offering of you two coming together. Why is that combination so powerful? You are coming with that amazing enterprise sales experience, and she's your co-founder, comes with so much depth and rich experience with Salesforce admin. Why that combination is so important to your customers and users?
There's two answers on that one. So for myself, I've been a rep for many years. As a rep, we know how to game the system when we have to. Co-founder, she has almost 20 years of experience. She works with CROs, she works with heads of sales, she works with CEOs, sales ops, rev ops. She's done deal desk, she's worked with multiple teams, multiple vendors. And, so we're talking about real life experience that matters a lot, because what we see, again, sales leaders, they know what they want, they just don't have or know the people with the skills who can actually do that, and that's what we offer. On the sales perspective, I've had leadership roles and I've been a rep, so I understand what happens when you miss a forecast. From a leadership perspective, it's a disaster because your whole number's shot and then it just rolls up, and that's terrible. We know how reps can sometimes get past those different stages. If you don't put the if you don't put the guardrails in place, they'll just keep going all the way through and they'll commit the deal, and it's based on happy years. And we want to avoid that. We need to put stringent measures in place so that when the deals are running through the forecast and running through the deal stages, that it's accurate. So when it comes to committing that deal, we know we can commit within more than 90%, 95% accurate. What we see out there is forecast accuracy is actually, can be at 70%. Sometimes I've seen 50%. You imagine if you're forecasting and your accuracy is 50%, how are you going to survive as a company? And we need to get in there and fix that. And that can be that's a people problem as well, potentially, but we can certainly fix it on the process side, and that's what we're looking to do.
No, fantastic. I think a lot of the organizations out there I'm working with would love that. So good luck, and So let's reflect a bit and bring this to a closure. So, when you look back now, and what did that accident take from you? What did it force you to become, Shane?
At the time, it just took away my self-confidence, it took away my self-worth, it took away who I thought I was as a person and the future that I thought that I was going to have. And at the time, it seemed like a real disaster. But on reflection, I believe that everything happens for a reason. And it really taught me about, and I think I already learned that. It taught me about resilience, about bouncing back. And I was always like that anyway before, but this was something completely different, because I had to survive it. Not only, survive this life-threatening injury, but I had to survive the death of a dream. So how do you come back from that? Well, you create another one. And that didn't just happen overnight. That took many years of self-reflection, self-loathing, and all kinds of things that were going on at the time. But essentially, if I could go back and just whisper in my ear in the hospital bed, it was like, yep, that's gone. Do something else. And it really is as simple as that. But you really have to want to change.
Wow. Oh, look, your story is very inspiring. I remember you said bouncing back and resilience. I remember this quote from my dad. I remember when I moved home at the age of 16, he said to me, when I face challenges, be a cork of a champagne bottle. It never sinks, but it bounces back. And I think you've proven it in your life. So there's a lot of inspiration in this episode. And I just want to hone into this. So for someone listening to this, who is in their kind of the middle of their messy chapter of life, what would you want them to hear?
Yeah. I mean, everyone goes through it. It's like the seasons in a year. You have your winter and your autumn before you get to the spring and summer. Well, it's a phase. And there was a phrase that I used many years, and I still use it today. And it's, this too shall pass. Because it will, as long as you trust the process and realize that what's happening to you now may not seem like it right now, but it's the best thing that's probably ever happened to you, because it's forcing you to be resourceful, it's forcing you to change your course, and it's making you a stronger person. All you have to do is just get through it, and you will.
Yeah, I love that, Shane. When you hear the phrase unfiltered decisions, what decision in your life feels most defining to you?
Yeah, I wish I could pinpoint it to one decision, but I think life's made up of little decisions, of the ones that we make, the ones that we don't make, and even when we don't make them, that's a decision in itself. Yeah. But all I can say is that when I think about decisions, it's just my life right now, your life, everyone's life is made up of all the decisions that they made and didn't make. I don't think there's any one decision that defined me, other than the fact that I decided that I was never going to give up or quit, and I was never going to listen to what the doctors told me, that I would have all these challenges, I wouldn't be able to run, I wouldn't be able to do whatever they told me. My choice was to continue, and when I spoke to those doctors, who when they came in a week later, my leg had actually healed, the bone were healed in 1 week, and they thought there was something wrong with me. Probably was. But I always believed that this one thing, and this is what I told them: your job is to put me back together. My job is to heal. And I chose that. And it doesn't, sometimes it can take weeks, days, minutes, sometimes it may even be years, but as long as you stay to that course, you'll get there, and that's what matters.
Incredible, Shane. I mean, whatever you do going forward, whether you work on Ravienta or you get back into enterprise sales, I think you're going to excel. Wish you all the best. I just want to, before we close, I want to do a little rapid fire.
Sure.
Which I always want to do with each guest here. So, quick 3 to 5 questions. Number 1, a belief you changed your mind about as a founder.
That you don't have to have all your ducks in a row. You just have to get going and just start. You don't have to be perfect, because things will break, you'll make mistakes, but as long as you keep moving forward, then you'll get somewhere.
Amazing. A tool or habit you can't live without?
Yeah, I spend a lot of time in AI now, so I use AI all the time. Not to the point where it's thinking for me or making decisions, but I use it to bounce ideas off.
Yeah. What's your favorite AI tool, by the way?
There's a mixture there, but in terms of usage, I do use ChatGPT a lot. But I do have a lot of other tools that I use, but that's the main one that I would actually use.
Good stuff. Best advice you ignored but later realized it was right?
A bit of a fun one. I was really afraid of public speaking for many years. And I remember asking my dad, of all people, like, how should I talk to people? And he said, don't look at anyone in the eye, just look in the ear. And you know what? I didn't take that advice, and I was glad I didn't.
One thing people misunderstood about your industry, fixing CRMs, process, quality, forecasting.
Yeah, I think the most misused tool in our industry is the CRM, and people just use it to drop the odd notes in, and they don't give it the respect that it deserves because it can do so much. And I think treating it and putting real processes around it is going to really impact the business if it's used in the correct manner.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree more. If you had to start again tomorrow, what would you do differently?
I would surround myself with the right people. When I say that, I mean people who are going where I want to go or who already are where I want to be. I would spend less time trying to perfect things and more time just doing it and making the mistake.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very easy trap to fall into when you're starting out, is to try and make everything perfect from the start.
Yeah.
The fact is it's not, because you really don't know if what you're doing is even right. If even you've got a right fit for the market, you won't know until you get a customer.
Yeah. Ooh, wow. What an incredible chat, Shane. I'm so touched and so inspired. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a difficult subject to talk about, and I appreciate you allowing me to share it. But it's definitely not something that I've spoken about. This is the first time, to be fair.
Yep, no worries. I mean, I loved every bit of it, and I'm sure the listeners and viewers would do too. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Great.
That was an incredible conversation with Shane. My takeaways are simple. When life says no, you can still choose yes. The doctors may have put Shane back together, but healing was his decision. And that same discipline now shows up in what Shane is building with Ravienta, helping sales team forecast with truth, not guesswork. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Let me know your thoughts in the comments.